Ma'am, stop right there. Don't move.
Excuse me. This is my house. Who are you?
Immigration and Customs Enforcement. You need to come with us.
I'm Congress. Do you have a warrant?
We don't need one. Turn around, hands behind your back.
Take your hand off me and call your supervisor.
4 IC agents thought they were executing a routine immigration enforcement operation. They had an address, a tip from an anonymous source, and the confidence that comes from years of operating without consequences. But when they pulled into the driveway of Congressman Marcus Thorne at 11 a.m. on a Thursday morning and tried to detain him without a warrant, they set in motion a chain of events that would end with all 4 agents in federal prison, their careers obliterated, and a legal precedent that would reshape how federal law enforcement operates. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. The security cameras mounted on Congressman Thorne's suburban Oregon home captured everything. Every word, every illegal action, every moment of a federal crime unfolding in broad daylight. And unlike Bodycam footage that can be turned off or mysteriously malfunction, these cameras were private property backed up to the cloud in real time, completely outside the control of the agents who were about to destroy their own lives. Marcus Thorne had served Oregon's 3rd congressional district for 8 years. At 51, he was known for his work on immigration reform, his vocal criticism of IC overreach, and his consistent advocacy for civil rights. He'd introduced legislation to increase oversight of immigration enforcement, held hearings on detention conditions, and publicly challenged the agency's tactics. He had enemies within IC agents who resented his scrutiny and wanted him silenced. That Thursday morning started like any other. Marcus had been up since 6 o'clock, went for a run, showered, and was preparing to drive to Capitol Hill for committee meetings. His wife Sarah had already left for work at her law firm. His 2 adult children were away at college. He was alone. The security system he'd installed after receiving threats from extremist groups covered every angle of his property. 4 cameras on the exterior, 2 on the driveway, 1 on the front porch, 1 covering the side yard, all recording in 4K, all with audio, all uploading to secure cloud storage every 30 seconds. At 10:58 a.m., the cameras picked up a black SUV with government plates turning into his driveway. Marcus was in his kitchen gathering his briefcase and files for the day's meetings. He heard the vehicle and glanced out the window, assuming it was a constituent or a staff member, but when he stepped out his front door at 11:02 a.m., he found 4 IC agents climbing out of the SUV, led by Agent William Drake, a 16-year veteran with a thick file of misconduct complaints. Agent Lucas Vance, younger, but equally aggressive. Agent Emily Hayes, who'd been with IC for 7 years and had learned to follow orders without question. And Agent Kevin Park, the newest member of the team only 2 years in, and already being shaped by the culture of impunity. The driveway camera had a perfect view. Marcus dressed in a navy blue suit, briefcase in hand, stopping at the top of his porch steps. The 4 agents spreading out in what looked like a tactical formation. Drake stepping forward, his expression already hostile. "Sir, stop right there! Don't move!" Drake called out. Marcus's hand tightened on his briefcase. He immediately knew something was wrong. "Excuse me. This is my house. Who are you?" Drake pulled out his badge, holding it up, but not close enough for him to read the name. "Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We need you to come with us for questioning." Marcus descended 2 steps, his voice firm. "About what I'm Congressman Marcus Thorne. You're in my driveway. Do you have a warrant?" "We don't need one," Drake said, moving closer. "We have authority under federal immigration law to question individuals suspected of harboring or assisting illegal aliens." The camera captured Marcus's face, shock mixed with anger. "Suspected by whom? On what basis?" "You can't just show up at a congressman's home without a warrant and demand he submit to questioning." Vance moved to flank his left side, cutting off a potential retreat into the house. "Sir, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. You can cooperate and come with us for questioning, or we can detain you for obstruction." Marcus pulled his phone from his jacket pocket. "I'm calling my attorney." Hayes stepped forward. "Put the phone down, sir. You're not calling anyone until we've completed our investigation." "Investigation of what?" Marcus demanded, his voice rising. "You show up at my home, refuse to show me a warrant, and now you're telling me I can't call my lawyer. Do you have any idea how many federal laws you're violating right now?" Drake's face hardened. The cameras caught every micro-expression, the tightening of his jaw, the narrowing of his eyes. This was a man who didn't like being challenged, especially not by a black man, Congressman, or not. "Sir, we have credible information that you've been harboring undocumented individuals at this residence." We're authorized to question you and search the premises. Marcus's voice went cold. Then show me the warrant for the search. Show me the probable cause affidavit. Show me any legal documentation that gives you the right to be on my property making these accusations. Park shifted uncomfortably. He was the only agent who seemed to realize this was spiraling into dangerous territory, but he said nothing. We have administrative authority that supersedes standard warrant requirements in immigration cases, Drake stated, reciting a justification that sounded official but was completely fabricated. That's not true, and you know it, Marcus shot back. I sit on the Judiciary Committee. I know immigration law better than you do. You need a warrant to search my home. You need probable cause to detain me. You have neither. Drake took another step forward now at the base of his porch steps. Turn around, sir. Hands behind your back. Marcus stood his ground. I'm not doing that. You have no legal authority to arrest me. I'm ordering you to leave my property immediately. The security footage showed what happened next with crystal clarity. Drake grabbed Marcus's arm. He pulled back, not violently but firmly, asserting his right not to be touched. Vance moved in from the side, grabbing his other arm. Marcus's briefcase fell papers scattering across the porch. Get your hands off me, Marcus shouted. This is assault. I'm a member of Congress. But they weren't listening. Drake forced his arm behind his back. The angle was wrong, too high, too rough. Marcus cried out in pain. The camera captured it all. The grimace on his face, the aggressive way the agents manhandled him. Hayes moving in to help restrain him while Park hung back. His face troubled. The sound of handcuffs clicking shut echoed across the quiet suburban street. A neighbor, an older white woman named Nancy Gable, had come out of her house drawn by the commotion. Her phone was already out, recording from a different angle. What are you doing? Nancy called out. That's Congressman Thorne. Leave him alone. Drake turned briefly. Ma'am, step back. This is federal business. Nancy's voice was shrill with outrage. You're arresting a congressman in his own driveway. Another neighbor, a middle-aged black man named Samuel Briggs, appeared on his porch. He started recording too. Within minutes, 3 more neighbors had emerged, all filming, all witnessing. Marcus, now in handcuffs, kept his voice steady, despite the pain in his shoulder where Drake had wrenched his arm. You are all making the biggest mistake of your careers. Every one of you, this is being recorded. Your badges, your faces, every illegal action, and when this goes to trial, every second of this footage will be used against you. Drake's response was to grip his arm tighter and march him toward the SUV. Vance opened the back door. They pushed Marcus inside his head, nearly hitting the door frame. He managed to duck at the last second, but the rough treatment was obvious to every camera, every witness. Before they could close the door, Marcus spoke clearly, projecting his voice so the cameras would catch it. My name is Congressman Marcus Thorne, United States House of Representatives, Oregon's 3rd District. I am being illegally detained by AC agents who have no warrant, no probable cause, and no legal authority for this arrest. The date is Thursday, and the time is approximately 11:15 a.m. I am being taken against my will from my home. I have committed no crime. Drake slammed the door shut. The SUV's windows were tinted, but the license plate was clearly visible in the footage. The agents climbed in, and the vehicle backed out of the driveway at 11:17 a.m. Nancy Gable was already on the phone with 911. Samuel Briggs was texting Marcus's chief of staff, whose number he had from constituent meetings. The other neighbors were uploading their videos to social media with captions like, ICE just arrested our congressman, and watched them take Marcus Thorne from his own home. Within 20 minutes, the footage was everywhere. Local news picked it up first, then national outlets. The images of a black congressman being handcuffed in his driveway, his papers scattered on his porch, his neighbors protesting agents forcing him into an SUV. It went viral instantly. Marcus's chief of staff, Leo Martinez, saw the texts and videos while in his Capitol Hill office. He immediately called the Speaker of the House Majority Leader, and Marcus's attorney, a civil rights lawyer named Olivia Grant, who'd handled high-profile cases for decades. Grant was in a federal courthouse when she got the call. She walked out of one case and straight into what would become the most significant civil rights prosecution of her career. At the IC field office in Portland, Drake and his team brought Marcus into an interrogation room. The room had cameras, but they were controlled by IC. What the agents didn't know was that Marcus's phone, still in his jacket pocket, had automatically started recording audio when he triggered the emergency function before they grabbed him. Drake sat across from him, Vance standing behind him. Hayes and Park waited outside. Congressman Drake began his tone mocking the title. We have information that you've been harboring undocumented workers in your home. We need to know who they are and where they are now. Marcus met his eyes, his voice level. I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent and my Sixth Amendment right to an attorney. I will not answer any questions without my lawyer present. Drake leaned forward. That's going to make things harder for you. Is it? Marcus asked. Because from where I'm sitting, you've already committed multiple federal crimes. False arrest, kidnapping under color of law, deprivation of civil rights assault, and that's just in the last hour. You think invoking my constitutional rights makes things harder for me? Vance slammed his hand on the table. You think your position protects you? You think because you're in Congress you can break the law? What law did I break? Marcus asked calmly. Name one. Show me one shred of evidence that I've done anything illegal. Drake pulled out a folder, but when he opened it, there was almost nothing inside. A single page with a vague, anonymous tip that claimed someone had seen suspicious activity at his address. No names, no dates, no specific allegations, nothing that would constitute probable cause for anything. This is your evidence, Marcus asked, reading the page upside down, an anonymous tip with no specifics. That's what you use to justify arresting a sitting congressman. The door burst open. A supervisor, Deputy Director Rachel Flynn, entered with two federal agents from a different agency. Her face was white with fury. Drake Vance out. Now. The interrogation ended at 11:52 a.m. Marcus was released at 12:03 p.m., exactly 1 hour after his arrest. Olivia Grant was already there, along with Leo Martinez and a representative from the Speaker's office. The drive back to Marcus's house was tense. Grant was already on her phone, coordinating with the Justice Department Civil Rights Division, with the House General Counsel, with everyone who needed to know that federal agents had just arrested a congressman without cause. When they pulled into Marcus's driveway at 12:41 p.m., news vans were already lining the street. The footage from the security cameras had been released by Marcus's team, and every network was running it on loop. Marcus stood on his porch, the same porch where he'd been arrested 90 minutes earlier, and gave a statement. His voice was steady, his anger controlled, but evident. This morning, 4 IC agents came to my home without a warrant, without probable cause, and without legal authority. They arrested me in my driveway, handcuffed me, and took me to a detention facility for interrogation. I committed no crime, I violated no law, I was targeted because of my work holding IC accountable for civil rights violations, and because I've been a vocal critic of their overreach. What happened to me this morning is what happens to countless people every day. People who don't have cameras, who don't have lawyers on speed dial, who don't have the protection of congressional office. The difference is I have the resources to fight back, and I will fight back. Not just for myself, but for every person who's been illegally detained, every family that's been torn apart, every community that's been terrorized by agents who think their badges put them above the law. The Justice Department opened a criminal investigation that afternoon. The FBI seized the agents' service weapons, their badges, and their credentials. By 5 p.m., all 4 were placed on administrative leave by 6 p.m. The security footage became the cornerstone of the case. Multiple cameras, multiple angles, clear audio timestamps, everything needed to prove exactly what had happened. The neighbor's cell phone videos corroborated every detail. The audio from Marcus's phone captured the interrogation. The evidence was overwhelming. Drake had fabricated justification for the arrest. Vance had participated in the assault. Hayes had aided and abetted. Park had stood by and done nothing, making him complicit. The charges came down 6 weeks later. Deprivation of rights under color of law, a federal felony, carrying up to 10 years in prison. Conspiracy to violate civil rights kidnapping. False imprisonment assault. Should all federal law enforcement be required to respect congressional immunity in office with automatic criminal prosecution for violations? Comment below. Because what happened to Marcus Thorne wasn't just about one congressman. It was about whether anyone in federal law enforcement could be held accountable when they decided the law didn't apply to them. The trial was swift. The footage played in court, watched by a jury that included 2 black women, a Latino man, and 9 white jurors who ranged from a teacher to a retired engineer. They watched Drake grab Marcus. They heard him invoke his rights. They saw the rough treatment, the lack of warrant, the fabricated justification. Drake's attorney tried to argue that he'd been acting in good faith on the anonymous tip, but the cross-examination destroyed him. Agent Drake, when Congressman Thorne told you he was a member of Congress, what did you think? I thought he was trying to use his position to avoid questioning. Did you verify his identity? No. Why not? I didn't think it mattered. You didn't think it mattered that you might be arresting a United States congressman. He looked like the other people we typically deal with. The courtroom went silent. The prosecutor let that statement hang in the air. What do you mean, looked like the other people you typically deal with? Drake realized his mistake. I mean, I didn't recognize him. You mean he was a black man, so you assumed he must be involved in immigration violations? No, that's not. Agent Drake, in your 16-year career, how many white people have you arrested for harboring undocumented immigrants? I don't keep track of race. I'll answer for you. According to IC Record 0, you've arrested 47 people for harboring or assisting undocumented immigrants. All 47 were people of color. All 47. Is that a coincidence? Drake had no answer. Vance's testimony was worse. He admitted under oath that he knew the arrest was questionable, but followed Drake's lead because Drake was the senior agent. He admitted he'd grabbed Marcus Thorne roughly. He admitted he'd heard him invoke his rights and ignored it. Hayes broke down on the stand, admitting she'd known it was wrong, but was afraid of retaliation if she spoke up. She testified against Drake and Vance in exchange for a reduced sentence. Park's testimony was the most damaging. He described the culture within their unit, the way Drake targeted people of color, the way complaints were ignored, the way aggressive tactics were encouraged. He admitted he should have stopped the arrest, but didn't because he feared Drake's influence could end his career. The defense tried to claim they'd been following protocols, but the prosecution brought in IC's own training manuals, legal experts' former agents who testified that everything about the arrest violated standard procedure. The jury deliberated for 9 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. The sentencing hearing was packed. Marcus Thorne sat in the front row, his wife beside him, his 2 children home from college to support him. Media filled every available seat. The judge, a black woman named Sylvia Carter, who'd served on the federal bench for 20 years, read the verdict, and then delivered a statement that would be quoted for years afterward. The defendants in this case committed one of the most egregious violations of civil rights I have seen in my time on this bench. They arrested a sitting congressman without warrant, without cause, and without regard for the law they swore to uphold. But this case is about more than Congressman Thorne. It's about every person who has been illegally detained by agents who believe their authority is absolute. The evidence shows a pattern of racial targeting, of constitutional violations of an institutional culture that enabled and encouraged this behavior. The sentence must reflect not only the severity of the crime, but the need to send a clear message that no badge, no uniform, no federal authority places anyone above the law. Drake received 5 years in federal prison. Vance received 4 years. Hayes, who cooperated, received 2 years. Park received 3 years of probation and was barred from federal law enforcement for life. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of one of Drake's family members crying softly in the back row. Marcus Thorne gave a statement outside the courthouse. He spoke about the need for accountability, for reform, for a system that protected civil rights instead of violating them. He spoke about the people who didn't have his resources, who faced the same illegal treatment but couldn't fight back. Justice today isn't just for me, he said, his voice clear in the afternoon sun. It's for every person who's been told to prove they belong in this country. It's for every family torn apart by agents who see brown skin and assume criminality. It's for every community terrorized by people who think a badge gives them permission to ignore the Constitution. The 4 agents began serving their sentences within weeks. Drake was sent to a federal facility in Texas, Vance, to one in Ohio, Hayes, to a women's facility in Georgia. They would serve at least 85% of their sentences before being eligible for release. Their careers were over, their pensions forfeited, their names forever associated with one of the most clear-cut cases of civil rights violations in federal law enforcement history. The civil lawsuit came later. Marcus sued the agents personally and IC as an agency. The settlement was confidential, but sources close to the case suggested it was substantial, with the money going to organizations that provided legal defense for immigrants and families facing deportation. ICE implemented changes, though whether they were meaningful remained to be seen. New training on congressional immunity, new protocols for arrests, new oversight mechanisms, but the culture that had enabled Drake and his team didn't disappear overnight. Marcus Thorne continued his work in Congress, if anything more determined than before. He introduced legislation to strengthen protections against illegal detention, to increase penalties for federal agents who violated civil rights, to create independent oversight of immigration enforcement. His security cameras stayed up, still recording, still backing up to the cloud. A reminder that in an age where everything can be documented, the truth has a way of coming to light. The neighbors who'd recorded that Thursday morning were hailed as heroes. Nancy Gable spoke at community meetings about the importance of witnessing, of recording, of not staying silent when you see injustice. Samuel Briggs kept a copy of his video on his phone, showing it to anyone who questioned whether illegal arrests really happened to people like the congressman. The house where it happened became something of a landmark. Tour buses would sometimes slow down as they passed guides pointing out where Congressman Thorne was illegally arrested. Marcus found it both validating and disturbing that his violation had become a tourist attraction, but he used it. He invited groups to his home, showed them the security footage, walked them through what happened, explained why it mattered. He turned his driveway into a classroom, teaching about civil rights, about the Fourth Amendment, about why accountability matters. Years later, when asked if he'd forgiven the agents, Marcus's answer was carefully considered. Forgiveness is personal, and I'm working on that. But accountability isn't about forgiveness. It's about ensuring this doesn't happen again. Those 4 agents are in prison not because I'm vindictive, but because they committed serious federal crimes. The sentence they're serving is a message to every federal agent that the law applies to you too. That's not about forgiveness. That's about justice. The security footage is still online, still being watched, still being used in training sessions about what not to do, about how quickly lawful authority can become criminal action, about why civil rights matter. 4 cameras captured approximately 98 minutes of footage that day, from the moment the SUV pulled in until Marcus was released and returned home. 98 minutes that destroyed 4 careers, sent 4 people to federal prison, and proved that even federal agents with years of unchecked authority can face consequences when their crimes are captured in 4K video with clear audio and uploaded to the cloud before they even realize what's happening. Drake's attorney filed an appeal arguing the sentence was excessive. It was denied. Vance's family claimed he was just following orders. The judge noted that following illegal orders is not a defense as established in Nuremberg. Hayes wrote letters from prison expressing remorse. Park completed his probation and now works as a warehouse supervisor, his law enforcement career over before it really began. The lesson settled over the law enforcement community, like a cold truth they couldn't ignore. Cameras are everywhere. Witnesses are everywhere. And when you violate someone's rights, especially someone with the resources to fight back the consequences, can be swift, severe, and permanent. Marcus Thorne still lives in that house, still parks in that driveway, still walks out his front door every morning to go to work, representing his constituents. The difference is every federal agent within 100 miles knows exactly who he is and what happens when you think your badge lets you ignore the law. Sometimes justice is complicated, nuanced, hard to achieve. But sometimes it's crystal clear, captured in multiple camera angles, backed by irrefutable evidence, and delivered by a jury who saw exactly what happened and decided that enough was enough. 4 agents learned that lesson in the hardest way possible. And somewhere in communities across the country, people who'd been illegally detained, who'd been targeted because of their skin color, who'd been told they had no rights, those people saw the footage and the verdict and felt something they hadn't felt in a long time. Hope that accountability was possible. Proof that the system could work. Evidence that sometimes the truth wins. If you believe that federal agents must be held to the same laws they enforce, and that civil rights apply to everyone, regardless of their position, subscribe and turn on notifications. Tomorrow we're bringing another story that proves documentation and courage can bring down even the most powerful people who think they're untouchable.